Hello everybody and welcome in my first practical video in JavaScript. In this video I will explain how to connect between JavaScript file and the HTML file, and then talking about the JavaScript basics, how to make a variables, what is the difference between a primitive and reference, and how to make object functions and arrays in JavaScript. And also we'll talk about the difference between the dynamic type programming language and the static type. This is our project. I called it project 2 in this file here. I just make one page in HTML, just called HTML home.html. You should already know that. This file, it is just an empty file. Or how I can make connect between this and the JavaScript file. The first of all, I will create a new folder inside the project2 file, project2 folder. I called it JS for JavaScript. You can call it anything, you can name it any other name. And inside it, I will create a new file called, for example, home.js. .js, that means that I will write a JavaScript code inside it. But how I can make a connection or connect between this home.js and the home.html? Inside home.html, inside body, or also you can do that inside the header. But the better thing in the JavaScript, you should make the code inside the body script src, like a source. Our file, JavaScript file, inside the JS folder. For that, we say just js slash and home.js, and just that thing. Now there is a connection between the HTML and the JavaScript. Now I will leave the HTML file because I don't need it until now and for this video. Now, how we can make a variable in the JavaScript thing? Just let and const. What's the difference? First of all, I will give you an example to using let. For example, I want a program to just add two numbers and show the result in the console. I just say let n1, for example, is for number 1, for example 3, let n2, for example 5, or anything. Also I will define another variable called z, for example, for result. I just make the n1 equal plus n2, n1 plus n2, and I will show the result in the console.log. This in JavaScript you can do that if you want to just show the result in the console, not on the HTML page, because we want just to talking today about the pure JavaScript. We don't talk about connected with the show the result using the HTML. Just we will talk about the pure JavaScript, the pure programming in JavaScript. I will show the Z. Just a very simple program. Just I make the n1 equal 3 and n2. I just reserve a position in the RAM or in the memory. The one position reserved for the 3 and the other for 5, and then the third position is for Z. It is equal just n1 plus n2. Just the result should be 8, and console to log this or to show the result on the browser. For that we have an HTML, home.html. As I said before, I connect between HTML and CSS, so the result should be displayed here in the HTML file. I go to the inspect and console. Show me 8, the result. It's number 8 because as I say 3 plus 5 is 8. Now what is the difference if I say const? Now, for example, I want to change n1. Instead of 3, I make it 4. Now, show the result. I will show you the result. It is 9, right? Why 9? Because n1 in this variable override the n1 here 3. 4 override the 3 because the JavaScript implement or run line by line. Start from first line and second line and third line and so on. For that, n1 in the first line it is a 3, but in the third line it is 4. For that, the z will take the 4. Now, but what if I make it not list, make it const, the n1. Now, if I try to get the result, show me error. What is the error? He say assignment to constant variable. He tell me you cannot do that because const mean a constant. The value of constant variable cannot change. For that, if I try to change the variable, change the value of the variable, constant variable, show me error. Even if without anything, it will be a let or var, just like this, without anything. Even also everything will be good. It is a 9. But const, that means we cannot change. The variable is not changeable. Or what is the difference between the dynamic language and the static language? A static language or dynamic language is just about the type of the variable. For example, I make a variable called name, for example, and I take the Usama as a value. It will easily show me the value. Name equal not z equal name, should be name not z. Now Usama, if I type here type of the name, the variable, what is the type of this variable? It's a string. We can say you can know what is the type of the variable by using the keyword is called type of, and then you write the variable beside it. The string, it is a string. But now I can change Usama. For example, I will name equal 4. Now 4. Now I should, if I also write a type of name. Now it is a number. I can easily change the value of the variable. In the dynamic programming language, you can do that, like JavaScript, like Python, and many other programming language. But in the static language, if you define the name as a string, you cannot change to the number, for example, or integer or any other value. But in the JavaScript and other dynamic programming language, you can do that. Now, what is the difference? If anyone asks you what is the difference between static programming language and or static type language and the dynamic type? In static type, you cannot change the variable when we define it. For example, we define it as a string. You cannot change to the number. In the dynamic programming language, the variable can change. The variable is changeable every time. You can define it as a string and then assign it to the other, assign the value to for number, for example, and so on. There is a primitive variable, primitive type, and the reference type. Primitive, we say we can define it by let. For example, name, the string. If I say, for example, false, it will be a boolean. If I make 6, it is a number, and so on. And also I can make it null. Also, it is a primitive. But reference, for example, we have an object. What is the object? If I have an object, not just a variable. For example, I have let I will define an object now. It is a user, for example. User equal, not just variable, for example, say Usama, because the user not just have a name. The user have a name, have a age, have a salary, for example, and so on. For that, I just make this like this. And for example, the user have a name. I say name like this, Usama, and have an age. Also, for example, 28. Also salary, Sal, for example. For example, 2000. Just I should make a comma. Yes. Now I have a object. This is the object. Now if I want to log the object or show the object in the console, I just make the user here, user. Now if we go to the console, make a refresh or reload, see the name Usama, age 28, salary 2000. If I want just to show me the age, for example, or just the salary, I just say in the easy way, just dot user dot salary. In this way, just 2000. Just show me the salary. If I say another thing, for example, age, just show me the age, and so on, 28. This is the object, and we will talking about object in the also another videos. Now there is other type called the array. Array also like an object, but it is a different thing. For example, I have an array of names or users. I have many users. I made like this, and I have a name. For example, Usama. For example, John, Ali, and so on. And it is a different. Array have an index. For example, now the value, the first value is Usama, the second John, the third is Ali, right? But the first value have an index begin with 0 or start with 0. Any array in any programming language have an index start to the 0. For example, if I want to print just John, for example, I say like this, users, the name of the array, and this, and say the index here. Index 0 for Usama, index 1 for John. Now if I say that like that, it is John, right? The value of the index 1. If index 0 should show me Usama, right? If it is 2, show me Ali, and so on. There is also another type, it is two-dimension array. That's array inside array. Now here in this array, the first value is user, just one value, it is Usama, right? Just one value in the first value, first index. The index 0 contains just one value, it is Usama. But I can instead that I create another array inside this index, inside the array. For example, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. In the index 1, in the user value, in the user, there is also an array. For that, if I want to, for example, print 3, how I can do that? I say in the users, in the array users, in the index 0, I say 0 here, and I make another and say 3. It is also there is index 1, 0, 1, 2, right? 3 in the index 3, in the index 2. I hope you understand that. Now I have an array. Inside an array there is also another array. I can make also another array here. For example, here also, for example, 7, 9. But if I want just to print 3, I say users in the index 0 because this is the first value in the index in the user, and inside the user the index 0 in the user also there is index because there is another array inside the user's array. And in this if I want a 3, it is also begin or start from 0 and 1 and 2. It is a 3. Now should show me the 3. It is a 3. If I print the 7, for example, it is the 7 not in the 0 in the user but in the 1 index, the index number 1. For that I say 1, and 7 it is 0 1, also index 1. For that I will will show me the 7, right? I hope it is understandable. I hope it is easy to understand. It is not a difficult thing, but you should understand this. This is the basics of any programming language, not just JavaScript. There's just a little variation between from the language to another. I will explain the function in the next video. Thank you very much.